Everybody here want to get started?
Sure.
Sure? Might as well.
Maybe.
Hi, I'm Greg. I'm Eric's accomplice, partner in crime at Estound. I've been doing web work for over 20 years, which that should look wrong to a lot of people. I actually built my first website when I was in 7th grade, and I haven't really stopped doing web work since then. So yeah, I think I was like 12 when this all started. And one of the things I remember going through these years is just the absurd ideas at the beginning that people wrote off and that became multi-billion-dollar businesses. Can anyone remember back when like Facebook was gonna do their IPO and everybody was thinking about how dumb that was? Like, it was a social network. It's where you go and like talk to your friends and share photos, and they literally didn't make money. Like they weren't monetized at all. They were just draining cash from their investors' coffers. And most people poo-pooed it, and they came out of the market, and I think it was like $38 a share. And within a few months, it had dropped to about $18. So everybody felt super validated. Everybody was like, yeah, of course that stock was gonna tank. They make no money. And here we are, less than 4 years after that point. Actually, it might be 4 years to date. And those shares now trade for $170+ each share. So how silly does that make some of you people feel? Like, thinking about where you were going to put your stocks. Maybe IBM looked good at that time. Hasn't done much since. And so what they really were valuable with was their data. They had this insanely rich network of information that no one else on the web had. And so what I want to do today with you guys is get into that data a little bit, especially the stuff that's freely available online that your competitors are generating every day and that you can look at and see what's happening in their spaces and use that to your advantage so that you can create an appropriate budget, an appropriate marketing plan, and hopefully use those things to generate some more leads. The best part of looking at competitors' data is that you don't really need to reinvent the wheel. You get to just kind of copy them. Or, it's like going to weddings. There's some things that you like and then there's some things that you don't like, and so you kind of help, create your own best thing. And that's what we can do here. But what it really takes is taking a step back from your own day-to-day business operations, which is really hard for a lot of people to do. It's why so many people rely on outside vendors, because they can come in with those fresh eyes and really take a look at your business from a user's perspective or a potential visitor's perspective, not just from an insider industry perspective. And so what I did is I created a website for y'all that is really meant to be obscure. It's not meant, you guys are not meant to understand the business at all. It's supposed to be jargony. It's a Bitcoin company. So if you don't understand Bitcoin, great. You don't need to. What I want the focus to be on today is that the process, and that this could be any business. And so I'll step you guys through aspects of this BK vault and what it does according to the person who created it, which is secure crypto wallet cold storage, which should mean nothing to any of you, hopefully. And if you understand it, then just zip. But from being in this industry a little bit of time, I could tell you that there's a few of these businesses that I've become familiar with. One of them is Coinbase. So they're this massive industry leader. They have tons of market share. The vast majority of transactions in the space are done through their business. So it's your, depending on your industry, it's like your Comcast, your IBMs, your just huge incumbents. And then there's another competitor that I heard about and their name is Zappo. And so what we're going to be doing is looking at our website and these competitors' websites and what's going on with them and seeing what we could get from that. And so what you guys need to start with when you're working with your own business is asking yourself those basic questions is, what problem am I solving? Who am I solving it for? And what are my strengths, weaknesses, and opportunity? It's really getting to know yourself first. And then what you want to do is that same practice with those other competitors, so you have an idea of where they stand. It sounds like a super rudimentary exercise, but if you can't answer that simply, like in a sentence, then that's probably a business problem, a fundamental business issue that you need to work with before you begin going down the rabbit hole of figuring out what you need to do with your digital marketing. And so what BK Vault does is it's essentially like if you think of Bitcoin as gold, it's like a safe security box for gold, but digitally. And that's pretty much all you need to know about it. That's the one sentence, 140 character thing about it. It's a safe security box for Bitcoin. And from a competitor standpoint, Coinbase offers services that are secure, they store this stuff, but it's not their main business. Their main business is a marketplace. And so the storage of this Bitcoin gold is really just a side gig for them. It's not their primary thing. They just have to do it because everybody else is trading in it, so they have to store a certain amount. So by default, they're storing this cryptocurrency. And this other business, Zappo, what they're doing is this exact thing that I think I'm doing, which is this really high-end, ultra-secure thing. And it's primarily geared towards institutions, B2B, and really high-end people who have millions in assets in crypto specifically. And so now that we've looked at our business and we have an idea of who these other people are and what they're doing, what we could start to analyze is the stuff that's actually behind the scenes. There's all kinds of things. What we see is this, we take for granted the surface of somebody's website, and it actually tells you a lot. So we see how they're kind of preaching about the secure aspect. They're really trying to build up your trust. They have a very clean looking website. It's refined. It's not trying to do too much. So that does tell you some things, but not too much. And then with these guys, it says literally nothing about storage. It's just about buying and selling digital currency. And that's just from a surface glance. That's all we really needed to take away from that. I apologize. I'm working with two screens. It's a very comfortable environment for me normally. And so the question is, now that we have an idea of our target markets, we know that Coinbase is probably pursuing anybody who's just looking to get into this very easily, not necessarily like a high-end person. It's just your everyday user. Like if you're at all curious about Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, you're probably going to run into this big website. You can't miss it. There's something that, has anybody actually heard of Coinbase? Anybody? Yeah. See that, like, you don't even know about Bitcoin probably too much, but Coinbase, for some reason, stands out. And so we might as well see what that tells us. One of the things I like to use is this little plugin. It's called SEO Quake. Sorry, I was going to say SEM Quake. SEO Quake. And it's a plugin for Chrome and Safari and whatever browser you happen to use. And when I click on it, it does this a site analysis of whatever website I'm on. And so you guys know there are dozens of SEO plugins to use. And you'll be able to see there's this title bar at the top here and another thing down here. And these are all just different SEO plugins that people might be familiar with. One's called Moz, and the other one is coming from the SEO Quake plugin. These are free to use. And once I click on it, it tells me a rough estimate of the amount of traffic that the website gets 15.5 million visitors a month. And so I could go and get an idea. Let's see what happens when I do that with BK Vault. Do a little quick comparison. They don't even have enough data. It's 0, pretty much. And that's correct. It's like a fictitious website. So that makes sense. And then this other one, Zappo, they're working with 1.66 million. Huge, pretty large in comparison. Definitely not as big as Coinbase. A little more approachable, probably. But what I really like this for, other than all these stats and numbers that you guys will see, it could get overwhelming quick. There's going to be numbers coming at you a lot. What we're going to be really trying to get at is where do they stand relative to kind of the world. So I can hit this compare URLs thing here, and I could plug in different URLs such as Zappo. So we'll cut and paste Zappo into SEO Quick. Oh, already was in there. Bitcoin. Coinbase. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's referencing a lot of data from other SEO, like it's using open APIs from other, it's connecting to other SEO services to get the data. Nice. And when I hit process URLs, it shows me all these different stats. I'm sure that's blurry for a lot of you. There's not too much. Let's see if I could blow that up. Yeah, it's not letting me even zoom in. That's one of the hard parts of going in through a plugin, is that you lose some of the features and functionalities that you'd have with a normal website, because this is actually just hosted on my browser. But what I'll read to you is that in the top one, it's telling me that Google has indexed about 46,000 pages from the Zappo website and about 2,000 from the Coinbase website. That kind of tells me a lot. One of the things that I could get from that is Zappo has done a ton of marketing online. They're really trying to grow their website. Having that many pages requires a lot of work. Whereas Coinbase, even though they're the bigger competitor, it has way fewer pages. And that's because their main product is an app. So all their work, all this activity that you do is primarily based in their app, which is behind a login, and that's not indexed by Google. And so you could see the difference in usability. Zappo, with them, I'm actually getting in touch with them. I'm making a phone call to those guys, and then I'm connecting with them person to person to use their service. Whereas with Coinbase, it's a very much so automated business. It has nothing to do with customer support, really. Another thing that I get to see is another stat that's called SEMrush SE traffic price. And this is going to be interesting to you guys. I know that sounds like a bunch of jargon, but for your own business, what it gives you is a rough estimate of how much somebody's traffic is worth, the value of their traffic. So you could actually plug this in, a competitor in, and then see how much their traffic is worth. So if they get maybe, well, in this case, for Zappo, 1.5 million people that goes to their website on any given month, and it estimated their traffic price is only $2,387. That stood out to Eric and I when we first looked at it, because their Alexa rank is 7,994. And for you guys, the Alexa rank means out of all the websites in the world, it comes in 900th place. So it literally beats out millions of websites and is only inferior to about 7,000 other websites around the world in terms of traffic estimate. And why that's, you'd think that traffic price would be a lot more valuable than that initial thing. So there was like a huge, you see these little gaps in their data, and the question is why? Why would Zappo have such a weird traffic price versus Coinbase's, which is estimated to be $252,000 a month? That makes much more sense. And one of the things I did was one of these links. You could use the web archive. You could go and look at the website and the history. You could check out its whois. But one of the things I did is just clicked the Google index, and it shows me all the Google search results that Zappos shows up in. And the first thing you see is its blog, and the next thing you see is its Portuguese website, and its Espanol website, and all this other stuff. And that started to make more sense to me why that traffic estimate was so low. It was because their primary target market isn't actually in the United States. It's in Portugal and Spanish-speaking countries. Portuguese and Spanish-speaking countries, which means that those costs per click, when people are competing in those countries, it's a much smaller pool, much less competitive, and therefore the costs are way lower. So that was one of the things that I kind of discovered in doing this exercise right off the bat, that I had no idea about somebody who I thought was a direct competitor before. I thought they were going for institutions in the United States. Turns out they really don't care much about that. They're going for other foreign markets.
One thing to just sort of call out about all these numbers is that they're all, now the algorithms behind them are fantastically complicated, but they're estimates. These are things that are impossible for anyone to know for a fact how much you would have to pay to replicate Zappos traffic. We're guessing how much traffic they have, we're guessing what it costs to replace it, but and that's one of the reasons that he's sort of breaking it down and going through this process of, I wonder what this means, because he's looking at that and trying to figure out which of those estimates are inaccurate and which are accurate. So it's sort of there's a lot to look at, and there's a lot to think about beyond just the numbers, and you can get into trouble if you just look at the numbers and say, okay, that's cool.
Yeah, I think the big thing is we always make assumptions about what our competitors are doing because it's based on word of mouth. We think there's a lot of hype that people say around their businesses about what they're doing, when really what's happening digitally often tells a very different story. And so I was telling you guys about that elevator pitch earlier, and one of the quickest, easiest ways to get any business's elevator pitch is looking at their metadata on their webpage. So with Coinbase, I was able to pull up this menu in the Moz bar, and the page title of the homepage for Coinbase says buy, sell digital currency, Coinbase, that's its title. And then the description is Coinbase is a secure online platform for buying, selling, transferring, and storing digital currency. And what those two things are, one is the page meta title is what shows up in Google as the link. So when somebody searches, you're actually able to control on your website what they see in a Google search result when you show up, if you show up. We're trying to get to that point. But with Coinbase, what people see when people search around Bitcoin is that buy, sell digital currency. Clearly those keywords nailed it for them. That's how they started to show up in so many different areas. And what they're selling with the little pitch is Coinbase is a secure online platform for buying and selling and blah, blah, blah. And so that's the description that shows up underneath that link when you Google search results stuff. And this sounds very basic to you guys, but I know a lot of us don't even think about how much intention is put behind something so simple. Because every word in this business's page title and meta description has been very carefully thought about and groomed over. And with Zappo, let's just do a little quick thing to see what they're showing. With Zappo, it says Bitcoin Vault. Zappo's extremely secure vault is their best way to store Bitcoins. It was built from the most advanced methods of cryptographic security. It sounds like a bunch of gobbledygook, but they're trying to instill that they're about storage, they're about trust, they're about security, not necessarily about buying and selling Bitcoin like Coinbase is. So now I'm starting to see this separation that is occurring between this differentiation between these two businesses. Any questions, by the way? I know I jumped in pretty quick. I went right for it.
When you say what does their meta look like, you're not scraping the meta of their, like, you know how every file, like every Word document has like an author and stuff like that?
Yeah.
You're not talking about that. You're talking about like the words they're using and the stuff they're saying.
Yeah, it's actually HTML source code. They're tags in the HTML that have been kind of agreed to over time, that when you use these tags in your HTML, and for you guys, if you're using WordPress, for example, in Yoast, it's a plugin that a lot of people use, or SEO for WordPress is another one, and there's a few other plugins, but when you scroll below the content in the editor screen, you'll see something that shows like a search result looking thing, and you could click it and normally change the title and description there. And so that's where you can control it if you're using WordPress or a similar platform. They'll always have like extra boxes where that's manipulatable. And now that I can see what these guys are doing and kind of how they're approaching these different markets, another thing I could do is click on their SEMrush stats. And so you guys know, SEMrush itself is a paid platform. It's a very popular platform. There are also dozens of SEO platforms. If you're doing keyword research or competitive analysis, most of these things, if you search for free trial in Google, will have a 30-day free trial that are pretty open and allow almost all the features to be used. And so I would recommend just, setting aside that 30 days, use it, do the free trial and cancel. Like, you guys aren't SEO companies. You could, and you don't even need to like get deep into these platforms to get tons of information. You could really just scrape the surface. You're gonna see a lot of numbers, a lot of charts, but really it's more about the practice of exploring what your competitors are doing online and not assuming about it.
So once you've determined what your focus is, your keywords, your meta tags, that changes over time, right? Keywords.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'll actually show that. That's why I'm getting into it quickly, because it ends up being a feedback cycle once you start to go down this rabbit hole.
Right.
So what I did is, in that SEO Quake numbers chart that I know you guys cannot see that well, but I can't do too much about, I was able to click one of the numbers to pull up another screen that goes into SEMrush and provides a full-on dashboard overview of all the stats that SEMrush has collected. I could see that this business essentially started in 2015, and this has been its relative traffic growth estimate, which is interesting. It like peaked and then has kind of plateaued out. But what I'm really interested in here is its top organic keywords. So once I have an idea of a few competitors, I could click on their data and I could start to explore their keywords. And this is a general overview that they've collected that you'll see. If you use like Moz, you might see a different collection of keywords. But since they're all using their own algorithms and intelligence gathering, they'll all have different kind of strengths and weaknesses in this regard. But as I scroll down this list, you'll see many of these keywords are branded just with their name: Zappo, Bitcoin. One of them is Zappo debit card, Bitcoin wallet. So that's unbranded. That kind of sets off a little bit of an alarm in my head, because when people are going for unbranded keywords, what that means is if somebody doesn't know who Zappo is, when they're in Google, they can type in just a keyword that makes sense to them, such as maybe Bitcoin wallet, and Zappo is going to show up in those search results, and they never heard of Zappo before, and so they're going to get discovered through those Google search results organically. And that's what people are really referring to when they refer to organic traffic and search results. It's not about the branded stuff. Most of us show up in Google for our names. But when you're showing up for unbranded search like Bitcoin wallet, those are the money tickets. So that's what stands out. I see Bitcoin wallet. And another thing, as I scroll down, let's see, Bitcoin bank. I like that one. So I'm doing secure cold storage, whatever tech crap, but it's basically a lock safe for gold. And Bitcoin bank, that makes a lot of sense. People's analog, what they affiliate my tech with, has more to do with their just traditional mindsets of banks and wallets than it has anything to do with the technology that I'm using. So really, how many of your industries have those same things going on? Where it's like you have the terms you guys use, that it's the right terms, and then there's the terms that your customers and the people that are looking for you might use, which are completely different. You know, something that if you're an IT support company, you might call yourself a managed service provider or something like that, versus just IT support. People just want IT support. So for this, Bitcoin Bank and Bitcoin Wallet stand out. And so what I could do is then click on these keywords, which is really cool. And then I could get an idea of what these keywords look like. Like, how much does it cost to buy ads for those keywords? Like if I'm doing search engine marketing, how much will those clicks cost? And if I want to show up organically, what am I going to need to compete against? Like, what have other people done, and how much traffic does that keyword even get? How much is it being used? And I can see from this overview, I'll read it to you guys, is that it's about 18,000 searches for Bitcoin Wallet a month. And the number of results that show up for it are 19 million. So there's a lot of people showing up for Bitcoin Wallet, clearly a pretty competitive area. And one of the things it shows is the CPC, recommended CPC, which I like, versus if you guys have used AdWords before, it'll show like a minimum CPC, and they show that to get people to spend money. So like if you're using Ad Planner or Keyword Planner in AdWords, what it'll show you is the kind of minimum entry point, so that, you know, I'm guessing for this keyword would probably be around $1. But because they have all the analytics on the competition within this search result, they're saying it's really more like $3 if you want to show up for anything.
Does everybody know what a CPC is?
Cost per click. Sorry about that. There's a lot of jargon, and I'm trying to catch myself.
I can be your Greg translator if he says something. I'll tell you what it means. I promise.
But already I've gotten into this new area now where I'm using this keyword, and I had the two competitors to start, but I could also see as I scroll down who shows up in the organic search results. So it's actually showing me what shows up in Google if somebody were to Google Bitcoin Wallet. And to nobody's surprise, you're going to probably see Coinbase as number 12, and Zappos shows up as number 15. So all those competitors, but really there's 10 competitors above it, some that I hadn't even heard of, that now I need to consider. So that just opened up the whole field. There was these people I knew, and there was a lot of people I didn't know, and now suddenly I have to go and explore all these other competitors, which I would recommend doing. Because like if you want a keyword, you want to know who's doing well for that keyword. And what you end up doing is you have the competitors that you face with in the real world on a daily basis, but digitally that doesn't necessarily apply. There's going to be people that are in your space that you didn't know were there, that are spending a bunch of money and actually getting results, and they're doing nothing in the real world. Their entire marketing budget isn't digital. And a lot of times, those people end up eating everybody's cake. It's happened in just about every industry, where somebody has said, everybody has to be, this is a people industry. This is about people sales. It's about people knowing me and trusting me and so on. And then 3 years later, there's this major competitor in their space that came out of left field that was purely digital. And so what this is really an exercise in is getting an understanding of who these digital people are, what are they doing, and then what can you possibly do to compete in this area. What makes people uncomfortable a lot in this is we grew up all talking face to face. We know how to interact with one another. But online, we tend to be completely in another universe, just like the first 30 minutes of this presentation. I just kind of zoomed you into this digital realm of data that is making a lot of people a lot of money. And if it makes you a little bit uncomfortable, there's a good reason behind it. It's because it's not really natural, and it's not necessarily your strong points. But I could tell you that from my perspective, this is something that if you're willing to ease yourself into a little bit and work through that discomfort of these numbers and these charts and do the research that holds back some assumptions, you're going to learn a lot about your industry and about how people are making money in your space online. And so with Bitcoin Wallet, I could say that is something that I think BK Vault could go for. I think that is something that it's not something I had on my website before. It does say wallet, secure crypto wallet, cold storage, but I'm not just saying Bitcoin wallet or something simple like that. It sounds above everybody's heads. And what you really need to do is message to the way that you need to meet people where they're at. And so Bitcoin Wallet and Bitcoin Bank are going to probably be where I have to explore for the rest of this time. Apologize for the pause, working two screens.
While he's arranging himself.
Yep.
One question. Bitcoin or Bitcoin Bank seems very short. Could we add another word at the end of it to maybe
Long tail it?
long tail?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Bitcoin Bank, I didn't click on that keyword. Bitcoin Wallet looks pretty competitive. Has a lot of traffic, so that's a good sign. It means there's opportunity in this space. And I would say that this is probably still the beginning of the universe for Bitcoin. So even though there's a large incumbent with Coinbase, which is interesting that they're not even in the top 10 results for Bitcoin Wallet. So there's a lot of people nipping at their heels and usurping them in search results in ways that I wouldn't have anticipated, even when I went into this exercise. And so you're absolutely right. Bitcoin Bank and Bitcoin Wallet may be too big for me to pursue. The cost may be too high. There may be too many people in that space already. But maybe I could say Secure Bitcoin Bank or Bitcoin Bank South America. Like, it seems like if there's a market there, if that's where Zappo is going, maybe there's a reason that they didn't pursue the United States as strongly. Have you guys done searches, Google searches in your area to see what shows up before? Anybody? Seeing some head shakes and some nods. Yeah. So yeah. And were you guys surprised at what you saw? Like, in terms of, was it exactly what you imagined it to be? Or was it a little bit different? Were there new people there that you didn't foresee?
First of all, it's all personalized. So.
It is. That was going to be my next thing. So when you guys do this exercise, it's important to use these tools, because these tools are the only thing that provide a neutral look at Google search results. If you've explored your competitors' websites before, or if your competitors are locally located and maybe your target market isn't just local, you're going to get a skewed perspective of what's happening in search results, because Google personalizes everything down to the point of your cell phone. Your past searches, your history, everything that you've done is taken into consideration by Google when you search. And so you have to use a third-party tool to get a little bit of neutrality out of it and gather this data. I get a lot of calls from people saying, my competitor's like above me today, and they're not happy about it. And really, it was just because they were driving by their competitor's location. They were right in their area, and it showed up because they Googled them, because they were like, I wonder what's happening with them, and they're there. Which is, of course, Google's going to show the most relevant person to that search, which is very close to them. So you want to really get a basis for what keywords are going to be relevant to those people from a neutral perspective. And since we're going to pursue Bitcoin Wallet and Bitcoin Bank, what do you guys think we could do with our website now? Like, I want to throw this back at you guys. Since I have secure crypto wallet cold storage, what would you maybe put in replace of that? So switch out crypto with Bitcoin. Maybe, what would you do? Have you guys ever explored top menu stuff before, like to see what's in there? What would you do with that top menu? Maybe make one of those Bitcoin wallet or Bitcoin bank. So it would really be changing up my entire website, the structure of my website, the words on it, and the metadata all the way through now that I've done this keyword research.
Could you use, I just heard this term the other day, pixelization?
Do what?
Pixelization?
Pixelization? Like tracking pixels?
Yeah.
Facebook tracking pixel.
Yeah.
Old school.
So so customizing it according to who visits your website.
Okay.
Would that be kind of the, because
Yes, because they were talking about A/B testing.
A/B testing.
I thought maybe there was, like, you put keywords in pixels, and maybe you could put Bitcoin in the background, and no one would see it, but it would still drive to the website.
So that's, when it comes down to this, and I'm doing all this different research, I'm seeing how these competitors are and what it costs for a click. One of the things I could say is, how many people do I want to come to my website? Maybe I want 50 people to come to my website, maybe I want 100. I would say for my service, 50 would probably be a good amount, because if I get one sale, I think I'm going to be doing a good job. And from the stuff that I've seen, what other people are doing with like Bitcoin Wallet and Bitcoin Bank, those clicks are roughly $3 a click. So what I could say is I'm going to need at least $150 a month to get that 50 people to my website, and maybe one of those people will actually become a customer. Based on paying for that traffic and coming up with a budget based on the cost per click, what you could start to do is split test. So maybe Bitcoin Wallet is an expensive click and Bitcoin Bank is cheaper. And what I could do then is pay for those kind of the same. Like I'll be setting up an ad that one says Bitcoin Wallet, one says Bitcoin Bank, and based on whether somebody clicked that ad, what you could do is customize the landing page so that you're split testing it. So it'll be saying, pitching yourself as a Bitcoin Bank versus a Bitcoin Wallet, and seeing how many more people come in that way. And that way you can start to decrease your costs over time. So the beginning of an AdWords campaign often is its most expensive point, because you're going to be paying a higher amount to get that traffic, because the quality is going to be low to start. But over time, as you start to accumulate the performance and the traffic that maybe your competitors have, you're able to have that data internally that you've gleaned from these other people externally, and you're able to refine your website further. You're able to change the words, you're able to modify it so that it's based on the traffic that you get, and you're getting the people that you want. That's really the big takeaway, is that getting into marketing often costs. It's the most inefficient when you start, and a lot of people get discouraged. Is they don't know where to spend money, so they just start spending it. They didn't necessarily do their research, or somebody told them that if they spent a certain amount on X, they would get Y. But really, if you didn't do this background research on your own and see what those costs, those clicks cost, you'll never be able to have a really keyed in perspective of what you should be spending. So people either over or underspend, as opposed to spending appropriately for the keywords that you want. And like you said with the long tail, Bitcoin Wallet, if you're looking at Bitcoin Wallet Denver, that would be a super cheap click, because probably not a lot of people do it. Very not competitive. But that's generally the gist of it, is that over time, as you research your competitors and get an idea of what they do, you can count on a 2% conversion rate for your website. And so if I get 150 people to come at $3 a click, it's going to cost me $450. And then I could count on 2% of those people converting, so I might get 3.5 out of the mix, about 4 people, and then hopefully that means you're going to get about 3 or 4 calls a month. And that's how you're going to back into all your research. How many people do I need? How many people do I need at my website? How much do those clicks cost? And then how many leads does that generate me?
And on that budget, he also knows that he's expecting to spend about $120, give or take, for each of those contacts. And so, knowing that it costs me $120 to get one lead, does that work for me? Am I going to make enough that it's going to offset it? Is it worth the effort? Can I scale it? All of those things are really valid questions. And so if you want to get to the point where you can scale a marketing plan and you can really understand what you're going to be getting and forecast accurately, you just really have to understand how all those numbers break down and what you're really paying for.
I could tell you roughly, based on other clients, if you guys go home and Google, or here you could Google Denver home care, that you'll end up seeing my client in the top 3 spot, regardless of wherever you do it. If you go and Google Vail Hearing Aids or Vail Hearing Center, my client's going to show up in the top 2 spot. If you look for cloud visibility, which is a security solution, you're going to end up seeing my client in the top 10, first page. And IT Services Denver, you're going to see my client first page. Denver Technology Events, you're here. We're top 5 there. And it's all been based on the research and then backing into the cost.
Are all your top clients AdWords customers or anything purely organic?
So any marketing plan should have a mix of the two. That's the next slide. So there's going to be an SEO strategy and an SEM strategy. The SEO strategy is going to be a longer term compounding interest thing that it's based on building out your website. So just like you saw, Zappo had 42,000 pages on their website. That's an enormous organic strategy. That's what it is often based on, is building your site out so that you have the right pages, the right content, the right information, the right videos for people to come in to those. They'll just Google stuff, and if you're using the appropriate keywords, they don't need to know who you are. They just need to be interested in what you do, and they'll land on your website. So that's going to be the SEO strategy. But what frustrates people is that SEO often takes it depends on your budget. Like if you're pouring money into something, you can get development going pretty quickly. But I would say for the meat of the market, people can expect not to see major results for about 6 months. 6 to 8 months.
When you say organic, it really means organic.
Watching it grow.
We're planting a seed in September that we're expecting to harvest in March, and that's a really tough thing for a lot of folks to grasp, because, well, I'm spending money in September, shouldn't I get results in October? Well, that's not realistic a lot of times, because in order for your company to gain rank, that also means that other companies that are working hard have to lose rank. It's a very slow process for a lot of folks, and it's worth it because it has residual gains. It's not like, oh, all of a sudden I stop paying for SEO and all of it goes away. So it's like working out. You're gaining muscle mass, and if you stop working out for a week, you're not going to become a couch potato again, but you have to get to that point, and if you don't do the work and you don't take the time and put it in, you're not going to get there.
And the keyword research is more or less the same, but like you mentioned with the long tail stuff, organically what you're going to be doing is going for a lot of different long tail keywords to show up for, and then over time that will branch up into those larger keywords. So if I did a lot of different long tail, let's say Bitcoin wallet Denver, Bitcoin wallet New York, Bitcoin, eventually I might actually rank for Bitcoin wallet. So the organic strategy is about a lot of small battles and winning those so that you can eventually win the war. And you can spend a consistent amount, let's call it $1,000 a month, and over time you're going to see returns that are like compounding interest, like any sort of investment, that are just, it's going to keep coming even though you're only spending $1,000, those returns keep compounding. Whereas SEM, which is search engine marketing, that's the cost per click model where you're paying for every click that comes into your website. What I'd like to think of that as is like jet fuel. It allows you to go to the most competitive keywords immediately. You could show up in the top positions. There's a quality factor there as well. It's the quality of your ad plus the quality of your landing page minus the, plus the cost equals your position. So that, yeah, exactly. But essentially ads have positions 1 through 3 or 1 through 4 that show up when you Google something. So you'll see those top 4 results, and you'll notice before it used to be just like 1 or 2 results and those results on the side. Now it's all online because it's made for mobile, where everything's in one column now. And now they'll show a lot more stuff, so you could see 4 ads and maybe a snippet before you're even seeing organic results. Like you gotta scroll down further and further to get to those organic results anymore. And so there's ranking factors in those ads, essentially to who shows up on the top. And the more you pay for a click, the higher your likelihood of showing up at the top position. So there's ranking factors there, but since you're paying for every single click, you really want to make sure that you have visited Eric's session earlier, that everything that you've done on your website is extremely buttoned up. Because of that jet fuel, you could be throwing jet fuel in a dumpster and just making a righteous dumpster fire. So because you're just spending a ton on either bad traffic or traffic that goes to your website and does not like what they see and they do not convert. You want to make sure you have your marketing really buttoned up by the time you're spending money on every click. But I do recommend that people do that, because if you're investing in marketing, you want to be able to get those immediate results that make everybody else feel like the phone lines are blowing up, that they're getting work, and so on. So it's really good to kind of initiate people with those SEM strategies and budgets. And a lot of SEO companies now, I know as a rule of thumb, will not do SEO organically without doing some sort of paid strategy too. Because they literally, it burns so many bridges. They can't provide that performance up front and people get pissed. And so they have to do the paid marketing strategy to get the performance.
It also reduces risk in a strange way, because when you're buying traffic on keywords, you're getting insight before you have to wait the 6 months to see if you can rank for them and then see if you can get traffic and then see if you can convert them. You get to find that out right away. And so you have to pay a little bit more to do it, but there's definitely a risk mitigation factor too, because you can see how closely correlated those keywords are with a good quality lead.
Exactly.
As a strategy that I've been running, I don't know if it makes any sense to you, so I'll just shoot it over to you. So I've been going after branding on social media to then generate branded search, which I know I rank for.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the more people that search my brand, does that actually help me in the other SEO areas?
See, that's a really interesting strategy. Because I've had this conversation with other people. Part of the reason I brought up Facebook earlier is because they have this data, and what the data is primarily branding oriented. Like with Google, like Eric likes to say, people take breaks from Facebook, but nobody says they're taking a break from Google. Google is very action oriented. When people use keywords, it's often at the time that they're going to do something. They're making a decision, they're researching to the point of making a decision. Whereas with people on social media, they're there to see what their friends are doing and family is doing in pictures. And so even though Facebook has this enormous cache of data about demographics, which sometimes they get in trouble for because they just recently got busted for being able to advertise to white supremacists, which is a really, crazy thing. But so they have like really pointed demographic data, but they do not have the data that Google has about when people are actually doing something and making a decision. So I think it's interesting that you're doing it to increase the branded search. I could see that being helpful. It's a really interesting idea in terms of building traffic.
Just because my domain's 3 months old, so like,
Yeah.
no matter what, I'm a 3-month-old domain, I have to deal with that,
So you're building up reputation faster.
trying to.
Yeah. I think that's a solid idea and probably affordable on a cost per click basis because it's not action oriented. Social media, if you pay for advertising, the cost is a lot lower.
When doing the research like this, I'm sure it takes a lot of time. Do you have any solutions for automation that might speed up the process?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. Well, I wouldn't want to automate this. I honestly wouldn't. Like, this is why people can come up to me and ask me about their business, and I probably have some different insights from what they might have gathered. I could learn a lot about it. It's like being able to lift the hood and look at it. It's almost like automating mechanic. Eventually, we might be able to automate mechanics, but I don't know. I don't know. Like, if you're driving in that car, I kind of want somebody human eyeballs on it.
You can automate the data, and you can get reports, and SEMrush and Moz will shoot you reports on a weekly basis, and they'll tell you all kinds of stuff. But it's one thing to have access to the stuff. It's another thing to understand what it means and how to use it in your business, and that's the part that you can't automate. And we have clients that have their own Moz accounts and stuff like that, and they're like, well, the SEO is going to hell. I'm like, what do you mean? Well, it says I've got a red arrow here, so I gotta, we've got to go back to, like, no, just let's all take a deep breath.
Those reports get me in trouble.
Sometimes when things go down, they're going down for good reasons. And so, for example, one that came up with a client recently, well, their average position on Google had dropped. Why is that? Well, it turns out that they were getting ranked for a whole bunch of new stuff, and it brought down the overall average temporarily. So if you just look at the report, you think, oh my God, I'm screwed. But the report actually doesn't mean that. You still need to understand what you're looking at, and there isn't an automated solution that's going to give you that.
Yeah, like intelligence versus information. There's a lot of information, but we still need intelligence. Like, that's the part that's hard to automate.
Could you show step 4 one more time? I didn't get to write down step 4.
I had 5 on this.
Okay.
Hey.
Maybe it's 4. Oh, it is 4.
One. Oh, go
You
ahead.
have some in your last slide about your warning about.
I'll go back to it.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
I'm
that-
curious what your philosophy on that whole thing.
Go to there 1 second. I'm sorry to make you guys write quick. These slides will be available online. Everything, we're going to have the entire presentation up.
Could you tell us about things you shouldn't do when it comes to SEO?
Yeah, over optimization is a real thing. A lot of people learn about these methods and keying in on keywords. The keywords are especially important for search engine marketing because when you set up an ad, that's what you're actually targeting is those keywords specifically. But when you're doing organic, I have only bad analogies to come up with, but it's like walking up to a girl and saying, I want to make out with you right now versus like actually trying to, buy a drink and get a number and have a conversation like a human being. Like, because that's what your website needs to do. Your website.
Do you want to get married, or do you want to?
Yeah, your website needs to have some finesse. And the way you do that is by truly being interesting, by providing something that is actually useful for people, and doing those things is really hard and time intensive. And so this was just like the kind of prelim to give you an idea of how to budget for those keywords and what keywords you want to be targeting, but it has nothing to do with that next step, which is here's what we think you should do with this information, which
There's
that would be in
one
another
other
day.
thing that in terms of the question about are there things that you just don't do with SEO, or my number one warning would be that if it sounds like a gimmick, it probably is. If it sounds like secret tricks and nonsense, it probably
Like hookup artists.
like hookup artists.
Yeah. So if you don't have enough resources to reach your goals, spending little is worse than spending none at all. What a lot of people do is they'll say, there's this SEO company that has they'll just do all my SEO for $300 a month, and people don't even know what that means. They just know they need to be doing SEO. And it's like, just save your money. Like, you save it up and then spend appropriately for whatever keywords you're pursuing. And if you can't, then don't spend it. Like, if there's a keyword pool that is above your punching weight, then don't even try to get into that ring, because all you'll end up doing is wasting money. And so that's really a lot of this research, is to prevent you guys from wasting money.
How do you prevent a knee-jerk reaction from seeing some data, like you were describing the customer that saw something changing? How do you make intelligent decisions about when you change up your keyword strategy and get rid of a keyword in favor of another keyword without doing it every week?
It requires a feedback cycle, because for most, I had a really interesting conversation with workers' comp lawyers the other day. And it was about how they wanted to be able to specifically track the best leads, the best customers they have, their best, what would you call them? Not customers, but clients. Their best clients to the marketing that they came in on. And I had to give them some bad news, which was that in e-commerce, that is incredibly easy to do. You could get such granular analytics and detail about what every single person's doing and how they're purchasing, because every action is happening on the website. So it's all trackable. And to the point that Amazon has automated warehouses with robots roaming around and getting the packages for them. But then the other side of the spectrum is like artists. And so where you guys are falling into line, like, part of why you needed humans in your job is because you're actually screening who's appropriate for a workers' comp case. And if you didn't do that, if that wasn't required, such as fields like estate planning, right now estate planning is getting automated. There's 3 major companies that are getting into that space so that people can spend $100 and create their own estate plans online. And essentially, that means anybody is their client, anybody's their customer, and estate planners are starting to sweat bullets at the thought of the potential that a large part of their market, there will always be parts of the market that will not automate, but a large part of the market will now just go that route. And so when it comes to tracking this stuff, we could get to a pretty close point, but for most B2B, you have to have that feedback loop where they're telling you, this is a good lead. This isn't a good lead. This is a lot of traffic that I'm spending time on that I wish I wasn't. And then I'll modify from there. Because there's been times where I thought I was doing awesome. Like, traffic was coming in, forms were getting submitted, calls were being made, and they're like, these people aren't good. And so that's when you got to switch it up.
So when you're getting the traffic and the calls, but not the conversions.
Exactly. The conversion rate is low, or the conversions are just not the people that you want them to be. That's not the market, which can happen a lot when you advertise.
So that's a good red flag.
It's a big red flag.
Is there like a rule of thumb, like do an analysis once a year, 6 months?
I think a good way of looking at it is quarterly. I think a smart, like your financials, review it quarterly, look at it quarterly, review yearly, I think is a fine way of doing it, especially when it's organic. When it's paid, monthly, because you're spending more, everything's happening quicker. So monthly review of paid is important. You want to always have eyeballs on it.
Experiments are things that you can always do, as opposed to SEO where there's that time involved.
Yeah, SEM should be changing almost weekly. Like, it's fast, like, depending on your budget. But yeah, I would say for most SEM, for people considering search engine marketing and cost per click, it's not really worth doing in most markets for less than $500. And if you have less than $500, you could potentially do remarketing, which means that if somebody goes to your website, you're gonna show up to them again in other places. So that would be an alternative. It's not gonna get you more traffic, but it maybe gets you more return so because people are going to be more familiar seeing you in a lot of more places.
Depending on the market, that also might be an acceptable budget for Facebook or things like that. But in terms of search engine stuff, we really recommend that don't even dabble with AdWords unless you have at least 500. And there are some markets where that doesn't do anything, you know. And legal is one of them. That's a tough one. Those are very expensive clicks, and so we have to put more money towards it. But there are markets where you can definitely do a real legit campaign with real legit results for about 500 a month on Google. But it's
What
got
kind
to
of
be.
industries are in those lower end echelons of
A lot of digital and long tail. Traditional businesses, like one of the, even the psychology, like.
Yeah, that don't.
So they're like, it was like telepsychology, like people would be able to like have their psychologists on a video line. It's very, I was not expecting it to be as competitive as it was. It ended up being a lot higher cost per click. It was like $15 a click for the best keywords, right? What? No.
Generally speaking, local businesses that where you're not in any of the really big, so like healthcare, legal, those are hugely competitive, really expensive. But if you're doing B2B, if you're business to business services, local can very often get in around 500.
Yeah.
And services, even for consumer, as long as it's very locally focused and not in one of those really just super competitive kinds of groups.
There are alternative platforms to look at. There are apps that are taking off that I think are worth a lot of people's attention. And I think I used one the other day. So one of them is Thumbtack. Is everybody familiar with Thumbtack? Anybody? Thumbtack. Thumbtack is a app that has kind of gone on, it's come out of left field to take on people like Angie's List and those types of businesses, directories. And it's very low friction getting into it. So that's more like,
more residential than commercial though, right?
it's more like home services, but lawyers are in it too. Like we're getting lawyers in it. So lawyers, since they normally have these high costs, are able to get onto these platforms and do pretty well. But yeah, so they're branching out of home services in a big way so that they're including legal and business services. So it's a good time to get in early so that you get your reputation up on those things. One of the things I tell people that are looking to get into the marketplace, especially if you have a new business right now, the market in general is pretty hot and a lot of places are saturated. My best clients, some of the people that have gotten the best results, were people who doubled down during the recession, because you're able to grow market share when everybody else's marketing budgets decrease and competition goes down. And so right now might be a good time to start saving money and putting money in the big piggy bank and maybe checking out alternative platforms so that when the inevitable does happen and there's another recession of some sort, that you guys are ready to double down and really start spending on marketing during that time that everybody else is pinching pennies. Classic, buy low, sell high. Yeah.
Do you know of any other apps other than Thumbtack that was kind of, relatively new?
I've been kind of just taken away. The app space has taken off, and
I know.
There's a few. Nextdoor, that's again home services are doing really well there. Trying to think. I think there's going to be some new ones with AR. We'll see.
Yeah.
There's a new one and I've been sitting here trying to remember what it's called, but there's also one that started a few months ago, mostly business focused, and I just can't remember the name of it. It's killing me right now.
Huh.
Mostly business focused.
Yeah.
Do you have any good apps that you guys use to scrub for content, so that because an SEO strategy without good content, just to generate ideas?
Generating ideas.
Yeah.
A lot of that comes from like Google News. I like to see stuff that rises to the top, stuff that shows up in people's Facebook feeds, for example. What I do is I subscribe to a lot of other competitors' pages, and I will visit their websites and put their industries in my Google News feed to see what stories are trending and at the top, and I use that mostly as fodder. And then I conduct interviews with people. Sometimes those interviews are turned into podcasts. Eric does a lot of the podcasting. Some of our clients have gotten very proficient at video, and a lot of the people who do that end up having sort of an in-house solution of some sort, because it can be pretty pricey to have a production company who's always doing that for you. But yeah, it's all about the content in the end. It is. And timely content too works. Like I just did one about forest fires that went really well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of resources out there for doing those productions for free, like at public libraries. They have green rooms
Mm-hmm.
that you could use for free with audio and video. And
That's cool.
yeah.
Public libraries have become this amazing resource in the last few years. Like,
They always have been.
I've been using, I guess they always have been. Yeah, like, it's like, there's this.
The idea that a public library has a studio like mine does, that's sort of new, I think.
I've been having meetings, like can have actual business meetings, and they're great. I love them. Really like them. They're good.
Yeah, you can get a room for free at a library. It's
Yeah.
cool.
Not only that, like I mean, of course you have the audio visual, but you do have sound studios.
Yeah.
And you have this website design. I mean, they do a lot of stuff at the libraries now that they didn't do 5 years ago. And it seems like it's just getting more and more. 3D printing, most of them have 3D printing now.
That's awesome. Oh yeah, the makerspace. Yeah.
Can you talk about video and how it ties in with all this stuff? And
So
what
it-
we should be
This is the basis. It's going to provide your foundation. So if you're going to be doing video, you're going to be doing it based on the keywords that you discover and building out videos that are playing into those keywords. The biggest thing about videos, it's just like any other content, you have to be consistent. You have to be doing it. It's not like every video is going to hit pay dirt. But if you're doing it on a weekly and monthly basis, and it's all themed and breaking down, what I like to do with video as a strategy is use your best blog post, the stuff that's getting the most traffic, and making a video out of that, and then putting that video, embedding it into the post so that it's all kind of playing well together. Another way you could do that is with infographics. There is a company out of Boulder that contracts with another service out of Poland called Contelio, and they do infographics. And are they doing like 90-second explainers? I think they got it.
I think
Yeah.
everybody's doing 90-second explainers.
Yeah, so they do infographics, and so you take your best posts and you could put the infographics into the post. You'll send them that as like your background, and that's a really easy way to.
What are they called again?
Contelio.
I think everybody should be doing video because
That's correct. And that applies more to some businesses than others in terms of how that might lead into a marketing strategy. But I can tell you with absolute certainty that, especially if you're marketing to younger people, when they're looking for true information, like, oh, I want to know how to do this, they're going straight to YouTube. They're not even doing a Google search. So video can be a very effective way to reach certain markets.
And I've found on the people that I follow anyway that have a lot of people following them, it's usually that it's quick little cuts of their video, so it goes from cut to cut to cut. That way you don't lose the attention by if you're talking anyway.
The cool thing about video now is that it used to be that when video, you got to get the camera crew and the guy with the microphone and,
Well, you have
all
the
that.
Facebook Live and everything now.
And now so what it's done is it's made it so that truly it's democratized. You can shoot a video with your phone and it can be acceptable.
Yep.
So,
I think the big thing about it is you just still have to be genuine.
yes.
You have to just be you. Like you can't like look like you're putting on a business thing. People tune out that stuff really quick. Nobody wants to be bored on YouTube.
Yeah.
There's way too much good stuff.
One more follow-up. Sorry. Is there any mechanical strategy to this? Do you put YouTube, video on YouTube, then embed it on your landing page, or upload your own hosting? What do you do?
You upload it to YouTube, or Vimeo works. I think YouTube's a little better for search engine strategy because you'll show up for those searches, and then you embed it on the page or post. I think in this case it would mostly be posts, and if you have a post that does really well, then that's probably a sign that maybe it should be a page, something that ends up in your top menu item. So like if it's like there's a few posts that have done better than the rest, that's a sign normally that you should make pages out of them, something more permanent, and structure it into your website so that it's not just like a date in June that post showed up, but it's something that actually somebody can find by using your top menu.
Is there any advantage to putting it out on different platforms, Vimeo, YouTube, Wistia, and is that a waste
My
of time?
rule of thumb is if you're doing it for search, it belongs on YouTube. If you're doing it for like quality, then Vimeo, Wistia, take your. But if it's for search and you're doing it as a traffic generation tool, it has to be on YouTube.
So it sounds like whatever you do with video, it should be on YouTube.
Regardless, unless you're putting it behind like a paywall or something that.
Or unless you don't care about. I mean, if you don't care about being found that way in terms of your video content, then obviously you guys are in an SEO workshop, so that might not include you. But if you're more concerned with like the quality on YouTube, not as good.
Okay.
But you're getting the search
Gotta have it.
bang for your buck. Whereas with like Vimeo, the quality is great, but you're not going to get that additional bump from the traffic.
Are there any bad tools out there right now, not just with video, but things to avoid because they've been proven to be detrimental to SEO?
That's a very loaded question because we love our tools. But when it comes to the tech, I think the biggest thing is like what I was saying with SEO Quake and SEMrush. It's more or less like getting what you can out of it and then leaving the rest. I think there's there's become such a glut of these types of tools that I think focusing in on what platform is not helpful. As long as you're a WordPress-based website and you have a gumption to really want to please your customers and educate people, you're going to be fine. Like we have those workers' comp lawyers that I was telling you about. They have a passion to teach the community about the things that they talk about on a daily basis, about what people approach them about. And so that's why I didn't include it on that list of like searches, because they do so much of their own content that I can't sit there and claim that they show up because of what I've done. I'm just kind of maintaining the house a little bit. I'm like cleaning up after them, after their party. But they're the ones putting on the show.
But even they get ranked nationally. They're
Yeah.
a tiny firm in a tiny town in a section of Georgia that you will never visit, and they get ranked nationally on a variety of topics, and the content and their commitment to it is what really drives that. I mean, obviously, we help and he helps, but it's a lot of it has to do with them.
And it kind of shows too, like if your passion lies there, like even if we weren't there, they would probably still be performing really well. They'd be doing good. And so all these other refinements, it's about not wasting money, not wasting time, so that when you're putting this effort in, that you're going to get the most out of it. It's about being intentional about those keywords and about how you're pursuing your competition. I'm good on my end, you guys. You've been a wonderful crowd.
He's done.
Yeah. I got a bunch of looks.